Hey, what's up everybody? It's me, Just Keeks, back here with a brand new video for y'all. And in today's video, I'm be ranking my favorite villains from JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. Now, JoJo has some of the most weirdest, for lack of a better term, bizarre villains in any anime. And with all that said and done, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into this tier list. Alright, so I should probably start this video off saying is I'm an anime viewer. I haven't read much of the manga. The only JoJo manga I've read completely has been Stone Ocean. I just started reading Steel Ball Run because my library just started getting the volumes. Although I read volume 1 and then I went to go get volume 2 and they only had volume 3, so I had to request a second volume. And then for some reason I still got volume 3. So with that being said, what we're going to do here, we're going to put Hilarious Valentine and Don't Know Enough, and Diego's going to go there as well, and Turu and Joshu are going to be here. So that clears up. So now we have our villains from the main 6 ports, the original timeline. So let's start with Dio. Where would Dio go? Now Dio, I would say, is a very basic villain. His whole goal is basically usurp the Joestar bloodline. He wants to take over Jonathan's. He wants Jonathan's inheritance and all that. His dad, Dario, I couldn't remember that name for a second. His dad, Dario, is a drunk alcoholic who basically, was a total dick to Dio and his mom and everything. In fact, Dario is the whole reason that Dio even knows about the Joestars, because at the very beginning of the anime, Dario comes across a carriage that has crashed. I don't remember the exact details, and I'm rewatching the anime right now. Shows how much I enjoyed part 1, but yeah. Yeah, so basically Dario finds like George Store's carriage, broken down and stuff, his wife dead, the baby's still alive. He assumes that George is dead and just tries to rob what he assumes is his corpse. And George wakes up and is like, "Oh, you're saving me." And he offers to pay Dario back, and with that, when Dario's dying, he tells Dio to go find the Joestars and, to get, what's his. Dio kills Jonathan's dog, which is pretty horrible. In fact, the manga, I didn't even know this. I just seen images the other day. The manga is even more horrifying in how they portray that. And in the anime, you know, you, in the manga, the dog just jumps out of the fucking fire and burning alive and everything, which is freaking crazy. So Dio, Dio, I'm gonna put in Dio. I'm actually gonna put in decent. You know, he's a good villain for the beginning of the series and everything and all that. But he's basically, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not even a word I'm looking for. He's basically like pure evil archetype, which honestly, moving on to the second villain of JoJo, Cars, I would say is that same thing. Cars is the creator of the Stone Mask, the leader of the Pillarmen, one of the most badass themes in JoJo, which I absolutely love and can listen to it over and over again. And Cars' ultimate goal is to become the ultimate being, completely in control of all life and everything. So cars, I'm actually gonna put above Dio and put him in badass. You probably remember, like, why is Dio here twice? Well, Dio in part one is just a vampire, but Dio in part three, this isn't even Dio from part three. This is Dio from part six. But whatever. He has to stand the world with the ability to stop time for 9 seconds, and he uses that to his ultimate ability to kill, torture, and do whatever he wants. He stole Jonathan's body. Like, Dio's whole thing in part one was that he hated Jonathan, and then just seeing how good Jonathan was at fighting and everything, he was like, yeah, I want that body. That's basically Dio right there. And after having his head removed and everything, and Jonathan even trying to stop him on the ship, that didn't even stop Dio. Now I'm wondering how now I'm sitting here and wondering how Dio had time to like stitch his head onto Jonathan's body. Like, how did that even work? Now I'm thinking too much. But Dio, part three Dio, I would say definitely better than Cars. Now, my favorite villain, Yoshikage Kira, is gonna go right here. A serial killer who wants to live a quiet life, which is, kind of redundant. Like, how do you live a quiet life when you go around killing people? I mean, it's Stan Killer Queen. If if you're an anime watcher only, Deadly Queen, has the ability to turn things into bombs and then blow them up so nothing's left over, which makes it a very great stand ability for somebody who's a serial killer. He lives in Morio, the main setting of Part 4 Diamond is Unbreakable. And he doesn't come into play until, like, way later into the part, but his presence is felt from the very beginning. The anime even, like, does this so much more than what the manga did, from what I understand. But Yoshikage Kiro is going to be the only person who's on this tier right here. Enrico Pucci, a very tanned Italian man, a disciple of Dio, and wants to complete Dio's quest of destroying the Joestar bloodline and changing everything. He has the stand ability White Snake, uh, which in the dub of the anime has one of the most terrible uh, English version stand names ever. Pale Snake. You know, it just sounds like, imagine, like, you're walking in some, like, dark alley and some guy jumps out in a trench coat, opens this up, and just says, like, "Hey, look at my pale snake." Yeah, not fun. So Enrico Pucci, I'm gonna put in decent. He's not one of my favorite villains. He's just kind of, you know, he's just trying to finish off what Dio started, basically. And last but not least, Diavolo. And I guess Doppio, but I wouldn't really count Doppio as a as a villain. He's kind of like Doppio's more of a tragic character. But Diavolo is the leader of the Passione mafioso group in Italy. Nobody knows of him. Nobody knows that he's actually the boss. He's pretty much erased his past. Only for it to come up with like the fact that he has a daughter, and that ties into the whole plot of like Golden Wind and everything. Um, but Diablo and Doppio is very interesting because they're literally the same character, but split personalities. You know, Doppio being kind and caring, and Diablo just being like a ruthless MFer. You know, like I said, who wants to erase his entire past and all that. So Diablo, I'm gonna put in badass. Actually, before Dio. So there you go, folks. This is my JoJo villain tier list. Sorry if this felt kind of rushed. This actually was going to be like a different JoJo video today, but the one I'm working on, I'm doing a lot of editing on, so it probably won't be out till like later. I'm hoping later this week. But if you enjoyed this video, please click that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next video. Love you guys.